Way to go, Tic Tac!
That's how you punch.
Wakanda forever!
Nah, you wouldn't have heard of me.
Let me put you on hold.
Dance off, bro! He's a friend from work!
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
What up, guys? It's Dom. Welcome back to another movie review. Today we are going over and ranking My Cousin Vinny. My Cousin Vinny, released in 1992, directed by Jonathan Lynn. Two New Yorkers accused of murder in rural Alabama call in the help of one of their cousins, a loudmouth lawyer with no trial experience. Now, I've never even heard of this movie, but my buddy Jeff actually recommended it to me while I was on vacation, so I gave it a watch, and I actually found myself really enjoying it. It's a very simple concept, but one that clicked with me right away. So without further ado, let's get right into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. So like I just said, the plot is very simple. The movie is very simple. It's just a guy that has to get his cousins out of being accused of being a murderer. And obviously, he has no trial experience. So seeing his character develop through the whole movie is kind of what made it very interesting to me. So even though the plot was simple, it had a lot of layers. It actually kind of reminded me of The Breakfast Club in that way. The second essential aspect is attraction. From the subtle comedy to the character development, I thought this movie was very attractive. I found myself engaged with this movie the whole time. I didn't know what it was going to be going into it. Just saw it was an old movie from 1992. And it just seemed very simple, so I thought it might be kind of boring, but I found it being very interesting and very entertaining. Seeing how he solves this case, it was very true crime, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I have to say, for attraction for such a simple movie, bang up job. The third essential aspect is theme. As intriguing as this movie was, I really cannot come up with a theme, so let's just move on to the next one. The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. Now, the dialogue in this movie, it was okay. It wasn't really anything special, but I do have to say that Vinny having conversations with Judge Chamberlain, they were such funny altercations. I mean, seeing him, who's a very stand-up judge of judges, he wants everything to be very straightforward, very, what's the word he used? My mind's spacing. Very professional, I guess. And Vinny is not those things. So seeing the altercations they get themselves into, it was very funny and definitely a great use of dialogue, and the way that they speak is very different. And I do have to give credit to Austin Pendleton, who played John Gibbons. Now, he wasn't a big main character in this movie. I guess he kind of was, and he didn't do the best job. But what I do have to give him credit for is when he stepped up to talk to the witnesses and just in general to the judge when he was in court. It is impressive how much of a stutter he gave himself. Because me personally, I have a stutter in real life. I don't even know how I would replicate it. But he doesn't have a stutter. And he knew exactly how to make it sound real. And it was hilarious. So I do have to give him credit for that. Even though he wasn't a main actor, didn't do some kind of Oscar performance, him doing that with his voice was perfect for that moment. The fifth essential aspect is acting. And one more thing I forgot to say in dialogue was the beginning of the movie. The whole reason they're accused for murder, just you can really tell how much clarifying can help. Because in two specific scenes, one was in the convenience store, or not in the convenience store, in the police station after they left the convenience store and got accused of murder, and in the actual prison cell. The conversations had there, you can tell neither one of the participants of this conversation knew what the hell was going on. They did not know what the other person meant and vice versa. So that was also impressive dialogue, because even me, I found it very funny that I know who's talking about what, but knowing that they don't was very entertaining. So that had to, one more thing I had to add a dialogue. But when it came to acting, so Joe Pesci, he played Vinny. He is an amazing actor. I really haven't watched anything with him in it. But then when I watched this movie for the first time, I can tell why he has high praises, because he did a really good job. He made the character who it was. He knew exactly how to be comedic at the right times. So I do have to give him a lot of credit. Marissa Tomei, who played Mona Lisa, she was also almost like a main character because she was the fiance of Vinny. And I mean, at the end of the day, she was the brains of the operation. She, as much as Vinny was the lawyer, she was the one that helped with everything. She knew what to do in all the situations. So I can't give her no credit. She did a really good job, especially her accent. That's not her actual accent. So hearing her put this on was very impressive. So I do have to give her credit for that. Fred Gwynne, who played Judge Chamberlain, him, He did a really good job. He was the more serious judge that had all those altercations with Vinny. And I just feel like just even the faces he makes during this entire trial were just the best part of his acting, because his acting was okay in general, but those faces he was making they're very subtle. You can tell in the background when Vinny's talking, but you can also see when he makes an appearance on screen. But he did a really good job. He knew how to make the right expression in the moment to elevate the scene, to make it funnier. So I do have to give him credit. And overall, everyone else did a okay job, but those in particular did a really good job that I thought was worth mentioning. The sixth essential aspect was cinematography. Now, visuals, there wasn't much cinematography. I can't really give it credit. It didn't have good cinematography in that way. And emotional, it also didn't have anything too special other than maybe getting me really pumped up and wanting him to win the trial. The movie did do good with that. I wanted Vinny to win. In no way did I want him to lose. I just wanted to see him as the underdog lawyer come up and win this thing. So that kind of emotion it does have. Everything else, it doesn't really have much. So cinematography is only okay. The seventh essential aspect is editing. Now, this movie is 2 hours long, and one thing that I do have to say, it did not feel like 2 hours. I feel like this movie blew by. It could have held me for another half hour. I probably wouldn't have noticed. But I do have to say that's because the whole movie was the trial, and that really intrigued me. I loved seeing what both sides had to say as the defense and as the state. So I have to say that I don't know if it's just me and I like watching trials and I find that enjoying, but it really did hook me. So I have to say the pacing of this movie was good because of that. I didn't even know that it was 2 hours, so the movie must have been paced good. And the ending, of course, wrapped up really nicely, like movies should be. So I have to say the pacing and editing was good. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. Before I say anything, someone go back and count how many times in that past essential aspect I said I gotta say, because it just really thought like I was saying it a lot. Maybe I'm wrong, but someone let me know in the comments. And when it comes to soundtrack, it definitely felt 90s to me, so I do have to credit for that, but I couldn't remember the soundtrack at all. So I gotta say, not really memorable, but definitely felt like the 90s. The ninth essential aspect is directing. So I think it is the director's job to take these previous 8 essential aspects, put them together to make a movie that's worth watching. And the director of this movie was Jonathan Lynn, and he's previously directed 3 movies, and they were Arms and the Man, Clue, and Nuns on the Run. And I haven't heard of these other movies, but based off of this movie, he knows his comedy. He knows how to have an intriguing plot, even though it's simple. So I do have to say, I think he did a really good job directing. This movie is definitely worth watching. I will definitely be recommending this to people I know that I also know have never heard of this movie. And the 10th essential aspect is time. This movie is almost 33 years old. It is 32 years old, came out in 1992, and I have to say it definitely stood the test of time. I mean, even now in 2024, this movie, having the simple plot, but having those intriguing engagements and characters that it has, it's a great combo. So I have to say, it doesn't really matter when this movie would have come out. I feel like if it had all these pieces that it had, it couldn't really be a bad movie. Now, onto the reviews. So, Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it an 85%, Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it an 87%, and IMDb gave it a 76%. Now, me personally, I don't agree with IMDb. I think that's a little too low, so let's get that out of there. And let's talk about this 85 and 87. I think this is almost right on the money. I agree more with the 87 than the 85. I think it should be in the high 80s to like a 90 mark. That's personally where I would put it. I just love this movie so much. I really don't think there's any problems with it. I just feel like some stuff could be more entertaining for the general audience. But for me, I love that court stuff. I was engaged the whole time. I wouldn't really want to change anything about it. And finally, the rankings. So, in 1992, of course, it's going to be first. It's the only movie I've recorded in this year. So until that changes, it's going to be alone. In the 1990s, it's going to be third, above Rush Hour, but below Toy Story. Now, I'm not really going to talk much about why it's below Toy Story. Toy Story is just a lot more engaging, a lot more interesting. Now, me personally, I loved the plot of My Cousin Vinny, but it's not for everyone. I know that. Toy Story, obviously, is made for children, but even as an adult, I'm enjoying it. I love the characters. I love the whole plot itself. And I just feel like because there's more there to be intrigued with, not just watching a trial, I had to give it the upper leg. But however, Rush Hour, it was very enjoying. I thought the comedy was amazing. I loved the acting. I just think I enjoyed the plot a little more in My Cousin Vinny, even though it was simpler. I think it was kind of better put together and not as hectic. So that definitely gave it the upper hand. And in all time, it's going to be ninth, above Spectral, but below Smile 2. Now, this is where it gets hard to kind of move these around because all these movies are kind of close. The reason I put it above Spectral is also because I enjoyed the plot a little more. Now, the concept is more interesting in Spectral. I just like the plot, the character development, and in general, just not really the concept, but the premise of this movie I enjoyed. I loved watching the court. I thought, even in Joker 2, I actually enjoyed the court part. So I don't know if it's because I watch Suits and I'm a fan of Suits, or if I just like watching trials, but I was very invested in this movie, which is probably why I have a little bit of bias. And I just feel like Rush Hour has those action-packed moments, the comedy moments, but when it comes to the plot, it could have been a little better put together. So that's why I had the upper hand. And Smile 2, I just feel like it's one of those horror movies where I could actually say that I would not want to watch alone. There's a lot of horror movies where they're meant to be scary, but the only really scary thing is the jump scares. It doesn't really have that horror vibe throughout the whole movie. But Smile 2, man, I mean, I got heart palpitations the entire time in the theater because it was so freaky. I literally walked out of the theater saying I'm punching someone in the face if they're smiling at me. Like, that's how it got me to feel. And it's hard for a movie like that to be passed on when it comes to this kind of situation, because both plots, actually I would honestly give the plot to My Cousin Vinny. I think it does have a slightly better plot, but everything else, acting, I'd say I'd give it to Smile 2. I mean, My Cousin Vinny has good, Joe Pesci's a really good actor, but besides that, I'd give it to Smile 2. I think the concept in general, wow, definitely Smile 2. Rewatchability, My Cousin Vinny 100,000 times, because I'm probably not going to rewatch Smile 2 unless I'm watching it with someone. But I'd say overall cinematography and everything, Smile 2 takes the cake on that one. That's all I have for My Cousin Vinny. If you guys enjoyed this review, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next. Have you guys heard of this movie? Let me know, and let me know what you thought of it. Am I really biased here with the just watching trials, or is it actually as good as I'm bringing it up to be? And make sure to check out my best friend, Mr. Majoritarian. He does movie reviews in the same format. He does the 10 essential aspects. He goes over the reviews. He goes over the rankings. He makes his own rankings. So definitely go check him out if you want to see someone that does the same format with a little bit of a different point of view. For example, in the Marvel movies, he's not as big of a fan as I am, so you will see his reviews are much less biased than mine are. So definitely go check him out. And if you guys have, or I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. My brain is mush. So I'll just say I hope you guys have an amazing night. Peace out.